Isabella Bella Hartman woke up to the gentle sunrise streaming through the bedroom window on the second floor of the small house on the outskirts of Edinburgh. The birdsong on the porch and the morning breeze carrying the scent of dew-kissed grass mingled with the fresh air, making her heart flutter with renewed joy at the prospect of a new school day. She offered a small smile, lifted the quilt adorned with tiny florals, and let her fingertips brush over the photo of her Year 11 classmate, Thomas Sinclair, neatly pinned to the wooden board by her desk. Memories of Thomas felt at once distant and strangely close, his polite, understated smile, the focused look in his eyes as he solved math problems, the way he bent forward at the whiteboard to write out each step of a proof, even the faint crease of his brow when mulling over an English essay. Each morning, Bella paused for a few moments to recall Thomas's tall strides down the corridor, remembering the first time their eyes met when she glanced up at him around the long table in the corner of the classroom. Back then, her heart had felt like it shattered into fragments of snow, falling in love secretly, without daring to utter a single word. The yearning to walk alongside him in the most prestigious secondary school had driven her to countless sleepless nights, wrestling with chemistry formulas and programming exercises, all in the hope of shortening the distance between them, even if only slightly. Though she knew her unrequited love was like a grain of sand lost in a vast ocean, Bella never ceased her efforts. She enrolled in advanced mathematics, Thomas's greatest passion. She pursued supplementary French lessons alongside English, as Thomas once confessed his fondness for French culture. She chose history of art and European philosophy, reminding herself, if I register for these, he'll know I exist somewhere at his side. Outsiders saw only a shy, silent girl buried in her books, but Bella understood that every page, every word, carried her ambition to stand shoulder to shoulder with Thomas. One light rainy afternoon, the classroom fell silent except for the soft patter of raindrops against the window. Bella sat at the back, her eyes fixed on every letter Thomas wrote on the board. Each stroke of white chalk against the dark slate gleamed like glitter, and in that moment, her heart raced wildly. She closed her eyes, imagining herself stepping beside him and placing a hand on his shoulder, when Thomas suddenly turned, catching her gaze. Bella froze, her mind blank, lips parched. He furrowed his brow as if sensing something amiss, then leaned over to whisper something to the student next to him. But Bella had already tucked away her notebook, her eyes glassy and heart pounding. Though the sting of embarrassment lingered, Bella felt a small surge of pride in her courage. She had dared to look Thomas in the eyes, however briefly. She told herself, I must be strong. I must prove I'm not just the timid girl behind her desk. On the morning of the mock university entrance exam, Bella and Thomas both registered for the A** stream, mathematics, physics, chemistry, the most competitive track at their school. In the early hush before dawn, Bella took her place in the examination hall. She spotted Thomas standing in the hallway, his black backpack slung over one shoulder, posture calm. Their eyes met without thinking. She quickly looked away, her heart aflutter. Throughout the 3-hour exam, Bella heard nothing but the scratch of pens on paper and the pounding of her own pulse in her ears. She recalled her mother's advice, stay calm, trust in your abilities. But how calm could her heart remain when it always raced at the sight of Thomas? When the exam ended, Bella lingered by the door, exhaling softly. Thomas stepped out, surprise flickering across his face at the sight of her still waiting. Isabella, he said quietly. Bella only nodded, cheeks tinged pink. He offered her a courteous smile before turning to greet his friends. To Bella, that smile felt like an autumn leaf drifting in midair, stirring every hidden thought she had ever held. She pretended to smooth her hair but was really trying to hide the tears welling in her eyes. Time flew by, and the final days of intense revision arrived in a blur. Bella devoted herself wholly to her textbooks, but each exercise felt meaningless as she kept imagining the moment the results would be revealed. On the morning of June 10th, Bella's throat went dry as the scores appeared on the computer screen in the IT lab. Trembling, she pressed enter and stared at the figure, 9.4 out of 10. For a moment, she feared she might faint. Then a chorus of cheers erupted around her. Congratulations. Everyone did brilliantly. Bella remained silent, tears brimming. She silently wished Thomas could see her achievement. Yet that flicker of hope was swiftly extinguished. Messages of congratulations poured into her phone from classmates. Tom got a full scholarship to Canada. Thomas is leaving for Toronto next month. Her heart shattered anew. She forced a smile and replied, "Congratulations," but wiped away her tears in secret. Deep down, she knew that even if she secured a place at a British university, he would have already flown to a new horizon. That afternoon, Bella wandered alone along the tree-lined path in front of their old school gates, where so many of their footsteps had once intertwined. The summer breeze whispered past, carrying the scent of pollen and warm asphalt. She wrapped her denim jacket tighter around her shoulders and wondered through tear-blurred eyes, was this silent love worth it? Was it worth all my effort for a love that could never be returned? But then Bella recalled those late nights under her desk lamp, solving a fiendish math problem and leaping up with triumph at finding the answer. She reminded herself, at least I had a reason to strive. At least I dared to love in silence, dared to dream of him. Like a tiny seed sown in a valley, it might not blossom in due season, but it survived steadfast under the sun. Bella returned home with a heavy heart, yet her eyes gleamed with determination. She knew she would continue the long academic journey ahead, becoming someone worthy of her dreams, even if Thomas was never by her side again. She decided to pursue medicine, an entirely different path from his, but believed that through diligence and perseverance, she would find her own way. And deep within her heart, a soft whisper remained, "I love you, Thomas. Even if you never know it, I will always cherish this love as the most beautiful memory of my youth." She placed her hand on the little notebook bearing his photo and scrawled, "Secretly loving you, Bella." Then she closed her eyes, a sad smile flickering across her lips, a fitting end to the bittersweet first chapter of her unrequited love. Tomorrow, Bella would step into the university lecture hall. No matter how busy life became, or how wounded her heart, she believed that one day fate would smile upon those who love in silence, granting them a chance to meet again. On her first days stepping into the lecture halls of the University of Edinburgh, Isabella Hartman felt as though she had ventured into an entirely new world. The vast auditorium, warmed by amber lights, the rows of seats lined up in perfect order, and the dozens of eyes fixed attentively on the lecturer made her both exhilarated and nervous. For the first time, without the familiar faces of her former classmates by her side, Bella had to face this expansive learning environment alone, striving to claim every inch of knowledge. When the first lecture began, she lifted her head slightly, absorbing each word being conveyed. The pressure could easily have overwhelmed her, but Bella reminded herself, "I chose medicine, I chose this path because I want to become a new horizon for myself." Her secret love for Thomas, still smoldering quietly, became a subtle source of motivation that drove her to work twice as hard. Whenever she encountered unfamiliar concepts, she would imagine Thomas gently leaning in beside her, whispering explanations in his calm voice. In that reverie, her heart felt an extraordinary peace. The very first anatomy class left Bella awestruck. The dozen or so human skeleton models, the enlarged illustrations of muscle groups, and the clinking sounds of surgical instruments made her both excited and a little queasy. She took meticulous notes on every detail, trying to sync with the experienced lecturer's rhythm. In that moment, only one thought remained in her mind: I must be excellent, I must truly understand the human body. But deep in her heart, the image of Thomas focused on chalking physics formulas on a blackboard continued to haunt her persistently. Late nights in the dormitory, when the desk lamp had long been switched off and only the faint glow from the streetlights outside filtered through the window, Bella often cradled her Year 11 notebook in her lap, rereading every line of memory. On its worn, cream-colored pages were hastily scrawled lines: "Secret love is painful, like a summer wind that cannot be stopped." She offered a sad smile and let her hand fall to the edge of the thin bedsheet. "I have longed for you through so many months and years," she whispered to herself. That love remained intact, even though Thomas was thousands of miles away in Canada. University life was not only about dry academic knowledge. Bella quickly joined student support workshops and found a group of friends who shared her passion for emergency medicine research. She wanted to integrate herself, to forget a little of the pain when Thomas left. But whenever someone asked about her past romance, she forced a tight smile and swiftly changed the subject. In her mind, Thomas still shone brightly like the North Star, guiding her but forever out of reach. One Friday afternoon, Bella happened to hear a familiar pair of footsteps in the corridor of the medical school. She looked up and saw a tall young man in a blue button-down shirt and carrying a black backpack, just like Thomas used to wear in high school. Her heart clenched for a moment. She turned away at once, feigning busyness with her notes on the clipboard before her. Yet her intuition told her it could not possibly be Thomas. The young man paused in front of the internal medicine office, asking the receptionist for information. Bella stood at a distance, her shoulders trembling. Could Thomas have returned earlier than expected? That evening, she scrolled through her old Year 12 group chat, hoping for a clue. The messages were still lively. Someone had come back to visit the school, someone else was preparing for further studies abroad. But there was not a single mention of Thomas. She pressed her lips together, trying to suppress her sense of disappointment. When the clock struck 11 p.m., Bella closed her notebook, switched off the light, and surrendered to sleep with Thomas's blurred silhouette lingering in her memory. University life continued with clinical practicums at the teaching hospital. Bella donned a stethoscope on her first patient simulator, listening to a heartbeat, feeling the breath. The cold metal pressing against synthetic skin made her startle, but she soon focused on each heartbeat. The instructor praised her. "Miss Hartman, you observe very keenly." Bella nodded, though inwardly she wondered if that keen attention was simply the power of a heart that had endured so much longing. Amid her busy days, Bella maintained the habit of visiting the library each morning, the quiet sanctuary lined with heavy medical tomes. She sat in a corner, detached from the hushed conversations of students, yet her mind drifted to Thomas. "Do you still remember the afternoons we stood beneath the oak tree in front of the high school gate, solving math puzzles before the bell rang?" She smiled dreamily at the thought of his gentle gaze. On her first Christmas away from home, the dormitory was decorated with twinkling lights. Bella gazed out through the glass window, feeling a sudden emptiness. She wondered, did Thomas, halfway across the world, have his family by his side, strolling under similar lights? She took from her pocket the small bracelet her mother had given her, flipping it to reveal the engraving, "Perseverance will bring you where you need to go." She sighed softly and stroked the inscription as though sending her distant memories into the night. By the end of the first term, Bella had completed her practical exams with high marks, earning recognition as one of the outstanding students. She beamed with pride upon receiving her certificate, but that joy carried a tinge of sadness. She realized, with whom would she share her achievements? Thomas was far away. She made a silent promise to herself, "I will become an excellent doctor, and one day I will make you proud, even if you never know I exist." In the following weeks, she devoted time to additional emergency medicine research and volunteered in short internships at the local hospital. Whenever news of a traffic accident reached her, her heart stirred. Was not that calamity akin to her own heart, shattered and trying to piece itself back together? She thought of Thomas, someone whose own feelings she imagined he kept as neatly organized as his tidy notebook. At year's end, Bella lingered in the library later than usual. She stacked her heavy books, closed them, and lifted her gaze toward the window. Moonlight spilled silver across the campus courtyard, flickering like tiny lights on the grounds. She whispered to herself, "I love you, Thomas. Though you cannot hear it, that love still resonates throughout my heart." In that moment, she no longer felt lonely. For within her heart, Thomas's image always remained, a silent engine driving her onward. And though her high school days were now a thing of the past, Bella's unspoken love had not wavered even once. She carefully closed her notebook, pressed it to her chest where the hastily written words remained. A bittersweet smile curved her lips as she vowed, "As long as I keep moving forward, destiny will one day guide our paths to cross. With the library lights switching off one by one, Bella donned her coat and stepped out into the night, carrying the belief that one day soon, she would meet Thomas again on the bridges, both long and short, of her life. Time rushed by like a raging river, for university years drew to a close amid the flurry of final exams, project defenses, and graduation ceremonies. Isabella Hartman emerged from the gates of the University of Edinburgh clutching her first-class degree, her heart both relieved and full of anticipation for the wide-open future ahead. On graduation day, she donned the traditional black gown and square cap, nodding respectfully to the professors and fellow graduates. The soft June sunlight gilded her hair, and Bella's smile shone brighter than ever. In that moment, she could not stop thinking of Thomas. Over the past 5 years, they had met only a handful of times via video calls, brief moments when she dared to invite him to share in her graduation joy, but he would merely smile and steer the conversation away. She still kept his final message, "I'm so happy you've come this far." "Congratulations, Bella." He had replied only with a heart emoji. She wondered whether he really understood all the quiet effort behind her achievement. After the ceremony, Bella returned swiftly to the hospital where she had completed her final internship and began work as an emergency physician. Her first night shifts filled her with excitement and tension. Sirens echoed through the sterile white corridors as medical teams raced into the emergency bay. Bella donned her stethoscope, listened to patients' heartbeats, set up 4 drips, and sometimes made life-or-death decisions in an instant. Saving a human life made her feel more purposeful than ever. Yet until her heart ceased being haunted by thoughts of Thomas, her work caring for patients could not fully banish her loneliness. Bella realized her secret love had not ebbed. Each time she rescued a patient, she wondered whether Thomas would feel proud to know that the shy girl he once knew had become a capable doctor at a prestigious hospital. She smiled to herself, convinced that her love had forged her resilience and compassion. In the months following graduation, Bella joined a medical volunteer program organized by the Ministry of Health and NGOs in the Highlands, a region devastated by a recent flash flood. That summer, she and a team of young doctors carried medicines, first aid kits, and portable oxygen concentrators over muddy roads to assist the survivors. On her first day in the mountain village, the damp smell and caked mud on her boots made her wince, but the grateful eyes and desperate need for healing in the villagers' faces wiped away all fatigue. One twilight afternoon, as Bella was packing up her equipment after treating children, she heard a truck engine rumble down the dirt road. She looked up and saw a vehicle bearing the Sinclair Holdings logo, the multinational tech company of the Sinclair family. In that seemingly random coincidence, her heart stilled. The headlights swept across people disembarking, and out stepped a tall man dressed simply yet bearing an air of authority, Thomas Sinclair. Bella froze, her cheeks burning red. She took a step back and bowed her head to hide her overwhelming emotion. Thomas scanned the scene, his gaze pausing on the small board where Bella was tallying medicine supplies. He frowned slightly, then turned toward the coordination tent to speak with the project manager. His warm voice carried through the quiet, "Please update me on the logistics and the prioritized list of emergency cases." Bella forced herself to steady her breathing and returned to her work. Each time she leaned down to check a patient's pulse, the image of Thomas behind the coordination desk lingered in her mind. Her heart raced and cold sweat broke out as memories of high school days flooded back, when Thomas had focused solely on his studies, oblivious to her existence. Now they stood in the same space, united by a noble goal, to save lives and rebuild hope after a disaster. That invisible bond made her both thrilled and fearful of exposing her long-hidden feelings. As dusk deepened into violet, Bella and the volunteer team were summoned to the supply area to distribute medicine to the villagers. She arranged box after box of antibiotics, bandages, and syringes on a wooden table and prepared the detailed inventory. Then she heard a familiar voice call, "Bella?" She looked up to see Thomas standing at the entrance of the makeshift clinic, his expression a blend of surprise and curiosity. He stepped forward gently, I heard you're in charge of pharmaceuticals here. Could you show me the distribution list? Bella nodded and handed him the carefully labeled sheets. She felt his fingertips brush the paper, making her heart leap. She regained her composure and spoke clearly. This is the count of antibiotics, dressings, and injection supplies. We need to prioritize children with pneumonia and elderly patients with heart failure. Her voice was steady, but inside she was a whirlwind of emotion. Thomas flipped through the pages and nodded. Then he looked her in the eye. You've done this so thoroughly. Thank you, Bella. Hearing her name spoken aloud, for the first time in 5 years, sent her heart racing. She replied softly, It's my pleasure. You've done well on the logistics side, too. They exchanged a few more professional notes before each hurried back to their responsibilities. That night, after finishing her shift, Bella sat alone by the campfire with the other volunteers. The wild highlands surrounded them, insects chirping in the darkness, yet she could not follow the chatter. Every time the flames flickered, she remembered Thomas's gaze on the inventory, an expression that felt warm and unnerving. She wondered, had he recognized her in that moment? And if so, why had he not said more? The following morning brought a light drizzle. Bella donned a blue raincoat and cap and returned to the examination tent, only to find Thomas crouched by the generator, adjusting its cables. Rain had plastered his hair to his forehead and drenched his shirt, making him look both dignified and humbly rugged. She approached quietly. May I help you? Thomas looked up, surprise and gratitude in his eyes. You've got more important work to do than help me. She smiled, hiding the pang in her chest. Together they refastened the connections so that the sterilizing water pump could run again. As their hands met on the valve wheel, Bella felt warmth spread through her arm, and tears threatened to spill. She withdrew her hand and bowed her head. It's working now. I'll return to the patients. Thomas nodded thoughtfully and turned away. When the volunteer mission ended and the team prepared to leave the highlands, Bella carried Thomas's image quietly in her heart. She wondered whether her silent love might yet bloom now that they shared this urgent, life-saving purpose, each pouring out their dedication to heal and rebuild. She offered a bittersweet smile, her eyes shining with resolve. No matter how far apart they had been, she would continue on her path, cherishing this strongest, most silent love within her. Returning to the city, the hustle and bustle seemed to sweep everyone into its endless whirl. Isabella Hartman stepped into the hospital lobby, so familiar during her internship days, yet it all felt strangely new. The overhead announcements calling patient names, the hurried footsteps of colleagues, the faint scent of antiseptic in the air, all reminded her that she had left behind a world completely different from the rugged highlands. But in Bella's heart lingered the echoes of those grueling volunteer days, full of sun and wind. She recalled the moment Thomas's hands had touched the pump valve, remembered the warmth in his eyes the first time he called her name at the field clinic. Her heart fluttered whenever she remembered his steady voice. You did very well. She wondered if he had noticed her transformation, from the shy girl hiding behind her homework to the determined, brave emergency physician. The next morning, Bella returned to her 8-hour shift, her mind still heavy with unnamed longing. She cared for patients, dripped 4 fluids, fitted breathing tubes on newborns, then stood quietly before the line of people waiting to be seen. At times she caught the curious gaze of a new colleague, an expression that inexplicably made her flustered. Bella forced a small smile, looked away, and dove back into her work, as if only the patients and her stethoscope were real. Meanwhile, in a stately mansion on a quiet avenue, Thomas Sinclair was helping oversee his company's new branch office move. He stood before a walnut bookshelf, his hand resting on the hard covers of his high school memorabilia. He took down a small wooden box and flipped through old photos, Bella at a year-end honors ceremony, class group shots, her shy smile. He had once thought of her only as a diligent, bright girl, never imagining she might harbor deeper feelings for him. A cardboard box nearby held old notebooks, journals, exercise books, advanced math pads. He rifled through dozens of pages, then froze at a worn brown leather notebook. Opening to a page in the middle, he read the graceful handwriting, "Secret love is so painful, like an oppressive summer wind. Though you may never know, I have always admired you." His heart pounded. His hand trembled as he tried to recall which classmate sitting behind him had written those words. Thomas snapped the notebook shut, eyes intent, then quickly dialed his two closest high school friends, Alex and Matthew. Calling Alex first, he kept his voice steady. "Hi, Alex, it's me. I'm packing up and found a notebook with a confession inside. Could you snap a photo of your November, year 12 entry, and send it to me?" Alex paused, then laughed. "Absolutely, sending it right now." He repeated the request to Matthew. The wait for their images left him anxious. He flipped through hundreds of journal pages, searching for that familiar script. Each time he opened a new photo, he compared it with the handwriting in his found notebook. Memories of Bella, the studious class assistant always at her desk, returned, alongside her gentle smile and downcast gaze. That night, as the city drifted to sleep, Thomas received messages from Alex and Matthew with photos of their notebooks. He opened them one by one and placed each beside his leather notebook's pages. When he held Bella's sample next to the found entry, the match was unmistakable, the same flowery curves, the same spacing between letters. He closed his eyes, heartache filling him. All these years, I missed a silent love. In that moment he wondered, why had he never truly looked at her before? Why only now realize she had been following him quietly all along? He recalled every time Bella had avoided his gaze in class, every afternoon she'd waited in the hallway corner, every mock exam she'd registered for alongside him. He understood, Bella had walked every step of his journey, while he was so absorbed in his own achievements that he'd failed to notice her devotion. The next day, Thomas arrived at the hospital where Bella worked, his heart both nervous and resolute. He entered the emergency department and scanned the room for her. She was bent over treating a traffic accident patient, her face calm and focused. He stood quietly behind her, pulse racing. She glanced up, hesitated for a moment, then looked down at the electronic chart at her chest. He spoke softly, "Bella, may I talk with you for a moment?" Bella froze, her heart thumping. She nodded slightly, voice barely above a whisper, "Of course." Despite the storm in her chest, she offered the same composed smile she always wore when bandaging a patient. They sat in the small break room, 2 cups of black coffee before them. He studied her carefully. "I'm so sorry I never recognized your feelings sooner. I found this journal when I was packing. I compared the handwriting, Anne." He looked away, voice catching. Bella's hand trembled on her spoon, her heart in her throat. She could scarcely believe he was looking right at her, speaking of the very words she'd hidden for so long. She slowly lifted her eyes, tears glistening. I only wrote it for myself. I never expected you would read it." Her voice wavered, tears welling. Thomas reached out, gently lifting her chin and brushing a damp strand of hair from her forehead. He whispered, "You deserve so much more than silence. And I want to give you that." In that instant, the world seemed to pause. The fluorescent lights blurred, the distant clatter of the cafeteria faded away. Only 2 hearts beat in unison, Bella's, strong yet timid, and Thomas's, full of regret yet resolute. He drew her into his arms and murmured against her hair, "Please let me have the chance to love you, Bella." Tears slipped down her cheeks as a genuine smile bloomed on her lips. She rested her head against his chest and nodded. The silent love of all those years had finally been spoken, quietly but overflowing with emotion. From that day on, Bella and Thomas began building their new life together. He was no longer distant, and she no longer hid. Each morning they shared coffee, each evening they reminisced about high school memories. Though the past lay behind them, the open road ahead awaited, and the once secret love that had endured so long now burned warmly, lighting every path they walked together. Dawn broke over Edinburgh, bathing the ancient oak leaves in a gentle golden light. Isabella Hartman drew back the curtains of the small hotel room where she was staying, her breath still warm from a drowsy sleep. In her heart still echoed Thomas Sinclair's whispered words, "Give me a chance to love you, Bella." After more than 5 years of keeping her feelings hidden, she had never imagined this day would come so soon. Through the window, dew-glazed cobblestones sparkled in the morning light. Bella slipped into her white coat, gathered her bag, and padded softly down the hallway. She still could hardly believe Thomas had been standing right behind that thin curtain. In that moment, she wondered, "Am I truly worthy of this?" She whispered to herself, "I deserve this love." Her phone chimed. On the screen appeared a simple, warm invitation, "Coffee at the Willow Cafe? 9 a.m.? A blue check mark confirmed it. Bella's fingers trembled as she typed back, "Yes. 9 a.m. I'll be there." She drew in a deep breath before stepping out. The Willow Cafe, a cozy brick-walled shop warmed by golden lights and rich coffee aromas, was Thomas's choice. He arrived early, seated in the corner, neatly folding his coat and straightening the project notes for his charity work. When the door's glass panels let in the morning sun, Bella recognized him at once, broad shoulders, straight posture, and eyes shining with more joy than she had ever seen. Thomas looked up and offered a half-smile of quiet delight. He rose and pulled out a chair for her. Bella's hands shook as she settled in. She managed a shy, "Good morning." Thomas leaned forward, placing 2 cups of coffee in front of her. "You like your cappuccino unsweetened, right?" Bella nodded, her heart fluttering at the sight of the handcrafted brew, the foam gently settling atop the cup. They sipped in companionable silence, savoring the balance of bitter and naturally sweet. Then Thomas spoke, breaking the quiet, "Thank you for coming." Bella replied softly, "I'm so happy to see you." The simple exchange felt like butterfly wings brushing the water's surface, and both smiled. Thomas sat back and took in the cafe around them. "I've thought a lot since our meeting at the clinic. I realize you're not just the smart classmate I knew in high school, but a strong, kind woman. I'm proud to be with you." His voice was warm and unhurried. Bella felt her cheeks flush and happiness sparkle in her eyes. "I've admired you for so long," she admitted. "You've always made me want to try harder every day." They laughed together as soft jazz played from a corner speaker and candlelight flickered on the table. They shared the stories of their past year. Bella recounted her toughest shifts, the first time she saved a life with her emergency skills. Thomas described building his company's medical charity fund, funding schools and clinics in remote regions. Whenever she looked up, she saw his steady, encouraging smile. When their time together drew to a close, Thomas walked Bella back to the hospital gates. He stopped and looked into her eyes. "I can't wait for tomorrow." Bella nodded, "Me too." She tilted her hand into his, letting his warmth flow through her, believing destiny had granted them a second beginning. In the days that followed, Thomas courted Bella with gentle patience. He did not plan grand gestures but showed care in small details, texting to ask if she'd eaten lunch, sending her research articles on blood testing techniques, ordering her dinner after long shifts. When Bella shared the story of a tense surgery that left her in tears, Thomas quietly squeezed her shoulder and whispered, "You're not alone." Their love blossomed in the everyday. They strolled through spring parks, watching cherry blossoms drift onto pathways. Thomas carefully gathered petals and pressed them into Bella's notebook, where she kept her most treasured memories. Bella struck goofy poses while he photographed her, content to look at his smile and feel her heart grow warm. Of course, life was not all rosy. Bella sometimes exhausted from overnight calls, and Thomas busy with lectures and board meetings. There were nights when texts went unanswered or plans had to shift. Bella read his last message one evening, "Sorry I'm swamped. I promise to make it up tomorrow." She closed her eyes and sighed, "That's okay." She understood the weight of his responsibilities, and forgave herself for her own past timidity. One late May afternoon, the hospital received a delegation from Sinclair Holdings to tour and donate new emergency equipment. Bella paused in the corridor, stunned to see Thomas leading the group. He stepped forward, smiling. I promised you a surprise. He slipped an arm around her and guided her into the equipment showroom. She choked back tears as she saw a row of defibrillators and stretchers engraved with Hartman Sinclair Emergency Fund, the very fund they had championed together. Tears threatened as she whispered, "Thank you." Thomas smiled gently. Nothing could be more meaningful than saving lives together. He brushed her shoulder and confided, "I set up this fund to honor your silent love, so it would no longer go unspoken." Bella wept, her grin radiant. In that moment, they realized love is not just sweet words but the shared commitment to create good. Bella collapsed into Thomas's arms, her heart bursting with joy. He whispered, "You don't have to love in silence anymore." She nodded, eyes shining, "I want to walk this path with you." The next morning, Bella opened an email inviting her to an international medical conference in Toronto, Thomas's former scholarship city. She looked out the window as bright sunlight filtered through new leaves. She messaged him, "Can I come with you?" Moments later, his reply appeared, "I'd love for you to join me." And so the journey of a long-hidden love became the story of two hearts side by side, from exam papers and rescue calls to charity projects and a transatlantic flight. What had once been silent as a last breath now resounded with hope, illuminating every road they would travel together. The plane took off in the early morning, and Isabella Hartman sat by the window, her finger lightly tracing the corner of her boarding pass stamped Hartman Sinclair Emergency Fund. Her face shone with a mix of excitement and nerves, the cabin's cool breeze ruffling her soft hair into gentle waves. She recalled her high school days, when she had dreamed of walking beside Thomas into the university exam hall, and now here they were, crossing an ocean together to Canada, where two paths once separated had finally converged. Her heart skipped a beat, and she exhaled in exhilaration. "We made it." Thomas sat beside her, eyes quietly fixed on the in-flight entertainment screen. Each time the plane shuddered, he glanced over and offered her a reassuring smile. Bella returned a sparkling-eyed wave of "I'm fine," then bent over her medical journal, a lifelong habit, immersing herself in its pages. Every printed word reminded her of the upcoming conference, the chance to learn advanced emergency protocols, and above all, to share the experience with Thomas, partnering in a mission greater than their own love. She thought to herself, "I'm not just your companion, I'm your partner." When the plane touched down on Pearson Airport's runway, Toronto's pale sunlight filtered through low clouds onto bustling streets. Bella stepped off the aircraft slowly, her lungs filling with fresh air that felt both strange and familiar. She and Thomas bumped elbows in a silent "We've arrived safely," and she saw the deep care in his eyes, an expression that had followed her for 5 years and was now warm enough to dissolve all her doubts. On the drive to their hotel, Thomas navigated the wide avenues, pointing out landmarks, the vibrant young Dundas Square, the CN Tower rising boldly against the sky, and the broad expanse of Lake Ontario. Bella sat beside him, clutching her small bag, her smile bright. "Toronto is so vast and beautiful," she said, placing her hand over his on the wheel, as if to touch the city's pulse. Thomas replied softly, "I hope you feel at home here." His gentle, warm tone made her nod. That first evening, they attended the welcome reception for the International Emergency Medicine Conference at the Sheraton Hotel. The banquet hall glittered with crystal chandeliers, tables laid out with refined precision, and staff in crisp uniforms. Bella entered like a commanding young physician, elegant in a navy dress. Thomas walked beside her, bending slightly in pride as all eyes admired the promising partnership they represented. She felt his hand rest lightly on her arm, a silent affirmation, "We step into this world together." Amid soft jazz and clinking glasses, Bella spoke with global health experts, introducing the Hartman Sinclair Emergency Fund and its charitable emergency equipment program. As her passion for medicine lit up her eyes, just as it had enthralled Thomas at their first meeting, he quietly sipped red wine behind her, then smiled in pride. When she turned, their gazes met, and her heart fluttered as it had the day she first sent him that message. After the reception, Thomas led Bella onto a high-floor balcony overlooking the rushing traffic below. The night breeze was brisk, but her heart felt unusually warm. She leaned on the railing, gazing at the city lights twinkling on the water. "I used to think starlit skies would bring back old memories," she whispered. "Now I just want to hold on to this moment." Thomas slid his arm around her and murmured, "I will never leave you alone again." The next day at the conference grounds, they joined a roundtable on disaster response. Bella presented her talk on medical relief efforts in the Highlands flood, while Thomas contributed insights on logistics, budgeting, and resource management. The audience listened intently, then erupted in applause when the session ended. He reached for her hand in the applause, whispering, "You were wonderful." She smiled, her heart racing, "I'm so happy to work with you." On their final night in Toronto, they strolled along the shores of Lake Ontario. Gentle waves lapped beneath the streetlights, and the wind carried the soft chime of hanging lanterns. Bella and Thomas sat on a wooden bench, silent in the beauty mirrored on the water. She leaned against him and whispered, "Thank you for giving me this journey." Thomas stroked her hair and replied, "Thank you for bringing me faith and inspiration." Together, they listened to the waves and felt their hearts beat as one. The Toronto trip had concluded, but for Bella, their love was only beginning to blossom. She believed that on every distant step they took, they would always turn toward each other, holding fast to these sweet, profound moments as they wrote the next chapters of their synchronized hearts. After returning from Toronto to Edinburgh, the routine of daily life seemed to draw both Bella and Thomas into the whirl of their busy work. On the first Sunday morning, as she prepared for her midday shift, Bella received a message from him. "Sorry, love, I have an urgent meeting this morning. Can we meet this evening?" Bella stared at her phone. His three-dot typing indicator had vanished, leaving behind a quiet hurt. She told herself, "I understand your responsibilities, but I can't help feeling lonely." In the hospital's waiting area, Bella watched colleagues hurriedly don their white coats, adjust stethoscopes, and organize patient charts. Everything was familiar, yet today it felt muted. She inhaled deeply, secured her mask, and stepped into the emergency bay. The harsh fluorescent lights reflected off stainless steel surfaces, and her heart rate spiked. She remembered the gala in Toronto, where Thomas had danced so gently to the soft music, his smile sparkling in her memory. Now, standing under these unforgiving lights, she realized never before had work felt so at odds with love, her heart aching between the two. Her first call of the shift threw her into the frenzy of action. An ambulance siren blared as paramedics wheeled in a polytrauma patient. Bella leapt into action alongside the attending physician, looping her arms to guide the stretcher into the X-ray room. The hum of machinery, the antiseptic scent in the air, and the sea of bandages and syringes enveloped her. Yet amidst the rush, she paused for a single thought. Thomas promised to meet me tonight. I will wait. That quiet hope glowed like a small lantern in the cold darkness of her duties. When her shift finally ended, she hurried to the little cafe near the hospital, where they had shared their first date. She ordered an unsweetened cappuccino and sipped slowly, searching for any sign of him. Time stretched on in vain. At last, her phone buzzed. "I'm so sorry, love, unexpected crisis. I must fly to London immediately to handle an emergency at our branch office. Can we postpone until tomorrow?" Bella stared at the cancel and OK buttons on her screen, her chest tightening. She drained her coffee, steadied her breath, and replied, "I understand. See you tomorrow." But inside, she felt unbalanced. The greater her love, the deeper her longing. The next day, life's pace returned to its frantic rhythm. Bella resumed her high-stakes emergency calls, sometimes managing horrific traffic accident injuries, sometimes soothing febrile seizures in children. In each moment, she silently whispered, "Thomas would be here beside me now, holding my hand so I wouldn't be afraid." But in reality, he was hundreds of miles away, grappling with business pressures and crises she could not share. A quiet envy stirred within her, envy for his responsibilities and her love's vulnerability. On Thursday afternoon, after back-to-back resuscitations, Bella sat in the staff lounge, her hand trembling as she held a cup of herbal tea. She gazed out the fogged window at hurried figures crossing the street to go home. Her eyes were distant. Is our love strong enough to weather the divide between our worlds, medicine and business? Tears slipped down her cheeks as she leaned back, letting the salt water trail along her jaw. Suddenly, her phone rang with a video call. On the screen, Thomas's tired but warm face appeared. Bella hastily wiped her tears and forced a bright smile. "Are you okay?" he asked. Bella exhaled, "I'm tired, but I'm okay." "And you?" Thomas looked into her eyes through the screen. "I'm tired too. I'm so sorry for making you worry." Her voice caught. "I just fear I'm expecting too much." He watched her earnestly and said in a low voice, "I promise to arrange my schedule sooner so I can spend time with you. You are my priority." Though exhausted, Bella felt warmth return to her heart. "I trust you." That weekend, Thomas made good on his promise. He appeared at the hospital gates just as dusk fell. The sunset light painted his hair gold, and Bella felt her heart leap. She ran toward him, wrapping her arms around him and resting her head on his chest. "I missed you." He stroked her hair and whispered, "I know." They walked together through the quiet hospital grounds, the very spot where her hurried steps marked the start of night shifts. Thomas took her hand and gently kissed her knuckles. "Thank you for understanding and waiting." Bella looked up at him, tears shining. "So you promise you won't leave me waiting like that again?" He nodded firmly. "I promise." In that moment, they understood that love is built not only on sweet words but on keeping the promises they make, no matter the distance or challenges life brings. In the days that followed, they joined hands on a new local volunteer project, rebuilding a clinic in the impoverished district and organizing free health screenings for underserved residents. Thomas rallied funding, while Bella conducted examinations and treatments. Each time they plunged into this shared work, they discovered quiet joy and deeper unity, their hearts beating for each other and for a mission far greater than themselves. Amid all life's demands, Bella realized, true love is more than romantic moments, it is the capacity to understand and stand by one another, even when storms rage. She told herself, "I loved him in silence for so many years, now I'm ready to love him openly and to walk beside him through every storm." Her heart felt stronger than ever. On Sunday afternoon, as golden sunlight dripped onto the hospital courtyard, Thomas held Bella's hand and looked straight into her eyes. "I have something I want you to keep forever." He pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it to reveal a silver necklace engraved with B&T and the words, "Together, always." Bella, moved to tears, hugged him tight and whispered, "I love you." Thomas nodded, soft and sure, "I love you too." And in that instant, two hearts from different worlds merged, steadfast and unyielding, like the silent love that had thrived through so many years. The road ahead would still hold its obstacles, but they knew they would never walk it alone. They had each other, faith, and the promise to write the most beautiful chapters of their lives together. The morning in Edinburgh felt warmer than ever as Isabella Hartman awoke to soft sunlight filtering through the hotel curtains. Her heart fluttered at the thought that today Thomas would formally invite her to the 10th anniversary gala of the Hartman Sinclair Emergency Fund at the City Hall. This milestone was not only deeply personal but also a testament to their shared journey, from a secret love to a fully united partnership. Bella slipped into a gentle pastel blue dress, fastened her perfectly fitting heels, pinned her hair into a neat low bun, and took one last sip of her steaming morning coffee. She studied her reflection in the mirror and allowed herself a quiet, victorious smile. "I'm ready." Any lingering shyness had been replaced by pride in how far they'd come. Thomas met her at the hotel entrance, program booklet in hand, its deep burgundy cover matching her dress. He wore a sharp black suit, crisp white shirt, and a blue tie that complemented her look. When their eyes met, genuine joy sparkled in his gaze. He drew out a chair for her luggage seat and whispered, "Today, you will shine brightest." Bella nodded, her pulse quickening at the warmth in his voice. The Grand Hall at the Urban Cultural Center boasted a soaring ceiling and murals depicting milestones in public healthcare. Rows of distinguished guests, local officials, international delegates, physicians, business leaders, and a throng of press filled the seats. Flanking the entrance were photo displays chronicling their Highland volunteer days, the Toronto reception, and their outreach to underserved communities. Bella traced each image, seeing herself and Thomas side by side, sharing those early, tentative smiles. She was struck by how their dream of service had become reality. When the MC introduced them, Thomas strode to the stage under the spotlight, his face glowing. He beckoned Bella up beside him and addressed the audience. "Good afternoon. Today marks 10 years of my partnership with Dr. Isabella Hartman in building this fund to support emergency care and charitable medical services. Without her, without me, and without all of you here, none of this would be possible." Bella's heart raced as she took his hand, feeling its reassuring warmth. The auditorium erupted in applause. Bella glanced down at their joined hands on the podium before looking out at the crowd. "I am honored to stand here today. In high school, I only dared to love silently a classmate. I never imagined that love would propel me toward my dreams and lead me to my life's partner." Her words resonated, leaving the hall in moved silence. Thomas squeezed her hand in support. Next, a short film highlighted their decade-long journey, Bella's relentless exam preparations under Thomas's watchful eye, her graduation day, her first emergency save, their Highland mission, the fund's anniversaries, their Toronto adventure, and their shared community projects. Each clip underscored two hearts beating as one. When it ended, the hall thundered in applause and tears of gratitude. The celebration continued in the adjacent banquet room, where round tables draped in pristine white linens and adorned with fresh flowers and candles awaited. Bella and Thomas circulated among well-wishers, offering modest smiles at each compliment. When an elderly woman clasped Bella's hand and said, "You saved my son's life last year. I thank you from the bottom of my heart," Bella bowed her head respectfully. "I was simply fortunate to arrive in time." As the evening drew to a close, Thomas led Bella to a balcony overlooking the central square. Golden streetlights cast long shadows, banners fluttered overhead, and distant street musicians played softly. He knelt on one knee on the cool stone floor and opened a small ring box, the metal catch glinting in the light. Bella gasped, her heart soaring. He met her gaze, voice trembling with sincerity. "Bella, you are the greatest inspiration of my life. You dared to love me in silence for so many years, dared to step out of the shadows, and dared to turn our dreams into reality. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" Time seemed to stand still. Bella found her voice, "Yes, of course." Tears streamed down her cheeks as she smiled the smile she'd longed for. She nodded, breathless, "I will." Cheers erupted from below, confetti swirled, and cameras flashed. Thomas gently slid the ring onto her finger and drew her into his embrace. His face shone with joy. "I love you." She whispered back, "I love you too." In that triumphant moment, Bella's steadfast, silent love at last transcended silence and became a full-hearted vow. They shared their first kiss beneath the brilliant city lights, a place that had witnessed the start of her unspoken love and now celebrated their two hearts as one. And there, hand in hand amidst the splendor of the anniversary gala, their love stood as proof of patience, perseverance, and radiance. It was only the beginning of the journey ahead, where together they would pen new chapters filled with hope and shared purpose. The autumn sky over Edinburgh was clearer than ever, the morning light filtering through golden leaves scattered across the streets, draping the park in shimmering ribbons. Isabella Hartman and Thomas Sinclair stepped out of their home hand in hand, hearts buoyed by the joy of their newly pledged lifelong promise. They decided to spend the weekend morning savoring simple moments before returning to the weighty responsibilities entrusted by the fund and the hospital. They wound their way along the ancient cobblestone path to the National Gallery of Scotland, the very place Thomas had first taken Bella to an exhibition when she was a freshman. Today, every familiar facade glowed with celebration, as if silently blessing the couple fresh from their engagement. Bella admired the century-old oil paintings lacquered to a high sheen. The gaze of the figures reminded her of the tender look Thomas had given her when listening intently to her treatment project presentation. She leaned against his shoulder, leaves rustling around them like a gentle applause. "I love being with you like this," she whispered. Thomas smiled warmly, brushing a loose strand of her hair aside. "Me too. Every day with you is a masterpiece." They strolled through the galleries, discussing color palettes and brushstrokes, until they paused before the painting titled "The Immortal Flower," a cluster of white roses against a deep midnight background. Thomas gently placed a small wreath of dried flowers, tucked into his coat pocket, on the frame. "So that whenever you see white roses, you'll remember our love endures through the years." Deeply moved, Bella kissed his cheek. After leaving the gallery, they slipped into the tea room next door, where the proprietor, long acquainted with their love story, served them 2 cups of handcrafted Earl Grey tea and violet macarons, the color symbol of their charitable fund. Bella sipped her tea, enjoying its gentle bitterness and the faintest hint of bergamot. Thomas placed his hand on the table, looking into her eyes. "I treasure every moment with you, but I also know the road ahead will be full of challenges." She smiled softly. "I'm not afraid. I've overcome silence and unrequited love. I believe we have the strength to face any burden together." He nodded and gently squeezed her hand. "I promise to always listen and share, through joy and sorrow alike." Her worries melted away, replaced by fierce confidence in their steadfast bond. That afternoon, they visited the Central Emergency Hospital where Bella worked. The once familiar halls were now quiet and warm under their footsteps. Bella led Thomas through the on-call rooms, introducing colleagues and recounting the toughest cases and the lives saved thanks to the partnership between the fund and the hospital. Her coworkers greeted them with smiles and admiration. Thomas beamed as he squeezed Bella's hand and whispered, "You truly are the shining star here." As dusk settled beyond the windows, they descended to the basement memorial, where candles honored patients who had not survived, souls who had inspired the fund's mission. Together they placed small candles beneath the memorial wall, upon which each name was inscribed. Bella bowed her head solemnly, eyes closed, praying for the lives lost before dawn. Thomas reached around to hold her shoulder, sharing both her tears of sorrow and her resolve to continue their work. Late that night, on North Bridge, they paused at the railing to watch the Forth River drift below, city lights dancing on the water's surface and distant traffic humming a lullaby. Thomas turned and wrapped Bella in a tender embrace from behind. "Do you know how I feel?" he murmured. She rested her head against his chest, listening to his steady heartbeat. "I feel happy, at peace, but I want to hear it from your lips." He inhaled deeply, choosing each word with care. "I love you, Bella. I love you not only because you are brilliant, but because you are patient, love unconditionally, and share my burdens. You are my inspiration, my strength, the heartbeat that keeps me going." His heartfelt confession echoed through the night, kindling her heart with warmth. Bella turned to face him, gazing into his eyes before she spoke. "I love you too, not in silence anymore, but openly, so the world knows I am proud to stand by your side." Thomas gently kissed her lips, sealing each promise with sweetness. The Forth River flowed quietly below, bearing witness to 2 hearts beating as one. They exchanged vows for the future, a small home in the suburbs where Bella could cultivate medicinal herbs, an ongoing charity clinic on the hospital grounds, and a commitment to listen to each other even in the busiest of times. They knew that no matter where life's storms took them, through natural disasters, medical crises, or corporate upheavals, they would hold fast to each other, allowing their steadfast love to grow ever stronger. And as the night deepened and Edinburgh fell silent, the two remained on the bridge, sharing a hopeful gaze. A love once born in silence had become a triumphant song, leaving no room for doubt or regret. Isabella Hartman gently rested her head against Thomas's chest and whispered, "You are the first page in our story." Thomas smiled and planted a kiss atop her head, "And you are the whole novel I want to write every single day." More than a year has passed since that radiant engagement ceremony, and Isabella and Thomas's little home on the outskirts of Edinburgh has become a haven filled with warm melodies. Every morning, Bella wakes to gentle sunlight slipping through the bedroom window and the cheerful song of birds in the garden. Thomas has swept away the golden leaves and tended the small patch of wildflowers and herb beds that Bella lovingly planted. His eyes sparkle with pride each time he sees her smiling over a steaming cup of tea on the porch. When they learned they were going to be parents, Thomas carefully rearranged his work schedule and designed the nursery himself, painting the walls in soft pastel blue and creamy white, hanging plush bunny toys and neatly arranging children's books. He placed the handcrafted wooden cradle and laid in it the knitted blanket Bella made with her own hands. Every detail reflects their shared style, warm and refined. Bella watched him agonize over curtain colors and teased, "I'm so lucky to have you." Thomas smiled, laid a hand on her belly, and murmured, "And I'm so happy to wait for our little angel with you." During her first weeks of pregnancy, Bella's body changed day by day. She felt nauseous each morning, but Thomas was always there. He meticulously prepared bowls of warming ginger porridge and set them on her bedside table. He listened patiently as she recounted surprise bouts of queasiness during work. He paused every important meeting to video call and check on her. Bella gazed at the black and white ultrasound photo, her fingers brushing the tiny shape curled in her womb. She whispered, "I can feel a new life growing in my heart." Thomas looked into her eyes and smiled softly, "I will protect and love you both for life." Bella's hair grew thicker and her skin glowed, even when pale from morning sickness. She shifted to part-time shifts in the emergency room, taking long midday rests between busy cases. Thomas arranged her prenatal appointments and held her hand tightly as the sonographer mapped every little movement of their baby. The nurse assured them the baby's heartbeat was strong and healthy. Bella exhaled in relief and threw her arms around Thomas, "Thank you for being with me." On weekends, they cooked together in their cozy kitchen. Thomas deftly chopped vegetables while Bella stirred a sweet, fragrant pumpkin soup. The aromas blended into a warm, homey atmosphere. He gently pulled up a small stool by her side and asked, "Are you tired?" She nodded. He laid a hand on her back and guided her to the table. They shared a simple lunch, laughter echoing through their little kitchen. As her bump grew, Bella sometimes struggled to find a comfortable sleeping position. Thomas installed a U-shaped pregnancy pillow, giving her a soft place to recline. Each evening, he carefully reminded her to drink warm milk, tucked a pillow under her legs, and draped a light blanket over her. She rested her head on his shoulder and whispered, "I feel safest when I'm with you." He kissed her hair, "Our baby and you will always be our happiest family." Their greatest joy was wandering through the park on weekends. Bella loved watching golden maples drift to the ground. Thomas often pushed her slowly in a jogging stroller he had adjusted for her comfort. They paused on a bench by the lake, where families strolled hand in hand with laughing children. Bella watched the little ones play, tears welling. "I can't wait to hear our baby's first cry." Thomas smiled gently, "Neither can I." At the end of her second trimester, Bella's friends threw her a small baby shower. Their living room brimmed with white and pastel green balloons. The cake was adorned with angel motifs in red, soon to be Mom and Dad. Thomas proudly presented the cake, eyes shining, "I can't wait to welcome our child." Bella chatted enthusiastically, swapping parenting tips with friends who were already mothers, her smile so bright it brought tears to her eyes. As the due date drew near, Bella felt the first mild contractions. Thomas stood by her side, his lips pressed tight, holding her hand firmly. They entered the familiar delivery suite, its lights soft and gentle, the sound of lullabies drifting from hidden speakers. Pain racked Bella, but each time Thomas leaned close to whisper, "You can do this, I'm here," she gripped his hand for strength. Finally, the most precious sound filled the room, the baby's cry. The tiny boy was placed on his mother's chest, his soft sighs stirring Bella's heart. Thomas's eyes glistened with tears as he kissed his son's brow, "Welcome, son of our hearts." Bella focused on her baby's clear eyes and choked with emotion, "You are our miracle." During their hospital stay, Thomas never left their side. He wiped sweat from Bella's brow, helped hold their son for feeding, changed diapers in the night, and diligently recorded vaccination dates. The simple hospital room became as cozy as their home under his care. When they returned home, their nest felt larger with the baby's soft cries filling the air. Bella woke at night to her son's coos, fumbling to lift him. Thomas would swiftly warm a bottle and cradle their child back to sleep. They exchanged tired smiles, simple moments brimming with joy. Time flew by, month after month, as their son grew surrounded by love. Bella returned to emergency work, but whenever she felt overwhelmed, she only needed to call Thomas, and he would drop everything to come to her side, holding their son and offering comfort. The balance of love, family, and career gave her unshakable strength. On the final night of this chapter, their son slept soundly in his wooden cradle. Isabella and Thomas rocked gently in the nursery glider, golden lamplight soft on their faces. Bella rested her head on his shoulder and sighed, "I missed those days when I pictured our baby in my arms." Thomas held her close and murmured, "You have given me the greatest gift." In the hush of the night, they listened to their child's soft breathing, a living testament to a love that grew from silence into partnership, from unspoken longing into a home filled with laughter, tears, and the promise of tomorrow. In the quiet, the clock ticked a gentle lullaby, 3 hearts beating perfectly as one, Thomas, Bella, and their little miracle.